It was supposed to be a respectful conversation between two presidents, but then Trump leaned into the microphone and spoke three words that froze the entire room. Sit down, boy. What happened next was not a raised voice or a flinch from Obama. Instead, it was silence that flipped the power dynamic and shocked the crowd until the internet itself caught fire. Millions saw it unfold live as a presidential forum meant to show unity turned into something else the moment those words were spoken. Donald Trump leaned in and repeated, "Sit down, boy," and a gasp rippled across the Phoenix Convention Center. Freezing time. Some people smirked, some looked away, and others clenched their fists, but Obama did not raise an eyebrow. He did not speak. He only straightened his jacket slowly, and for 10 long seconds, he said nothing. Yet in that silence, everything shifted. The forum was designed for bipartisan dialogue. Two presidents, one current and one former, discussing the future of America, but the script shattered instantly because those three words carried not just condescension, but generations of racial weight and coded dominance. Reactions varied across the room. A pastor in the front row shook his head. A college student began recording, and a woman clutched her pearls as if trying to calm her heart. But the loudest part of that moment was stillness. Obama remained calm, composed, untouched. He took a sip of water, adjusted his tie, and let the silence hang. Heavy like fog, the audience shifted uneasily in their seats, not because he said anything, but because he had not. And that restraint became power. Trump leaned back, smirking, asking what no response, before baiting him again, louder and sharper. But Obama stayed steady. Finally, he leaned into the mic and said calmly, "I will respond." And with those words, the atmosphere transformed. He continued, "I have been called a lot of things in my life, but respect has never been something I had to beg for." Crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Phones shot into the air. People stood clapping until their hands burned red. Trump rolled his eyes, snapping, "Do not lecture me about respect, Barack. I am the President of the United States." Obama turned to him not with fury, but with patience, and answered, "Yes, you are. And that is exactly why every word you speak carries weight. And the title of president does not make you bigger than the people you serve. It reminds you to carry yourself in a way worthy of their trust." The crowd erupted again in applause, whistles, and cheers, until a woman in a red blazer stood up and shouted, "Say that again." Obama smiled faintly and told them, "You can demand someone sit down, you can try to shrink them with words, but respect does not bow to commands. Respect comes when you stand for something greater than yourself." The room grew electric. As he continued, "We teach our children that the measure of a person is not how much power they can grab, but how they use the power they've been given. We tell them to be fair, to be honest, to lift others up. That is not complicated. That is leadership." Trump cut in, scoffing, "Oh, please, you think lectures make you great? People did not elect me to give sermons. They elected me to fight." Obama turned to him directly and said, "You are right. They did not elect you to give sermons, but they did elect you to lead. And there is a difference. Fighting for yourself is not leadership. Fighting for people who do not look like you, do not pray like you, do not agree with you, that is leadership." Even some Republicans in the audience began clapping. The cameras caught a veteran nodding, a student wiping away a tear. And then Obama leaned in softer this time and said, "You see, Mr. President, the most powerful thing a leader can say is not sit down and to stand up with me." The applause that followed shook the walls. It was more than a reaction. It was a redirection. And suddenly the narrative had shifted outside the convention center. Media swarmed. Hashtags trended. "Sit down, boy," and "stand up with me" spread across every platform. Clips of Obama's silence and words racked up millions of views within hours. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter flooded with memes, commentary, and split reactions. One video replayed his calm jacket adjustment with the caption, "Leadership does not yell at teachers," while in the White House Trump fumed, insisting they were twisting it, claiming he did not mean it that way. But his aides panicked, and allies struggled to spin the moment even. "Our base is split," one admitted. Meanwhile, in Chicago hotel suite, Obama sat quietly as his team muted the television. Valerie Jarrett leaned forward and said, "You did not just respond, you reminded people." David Plouffe glanced at his phone and added, "It is everywhere, globally trending. I have not seen this kind of energy since yes, we can." Obama shook his head, cautioning them not to get ahead of themselves, insisting he was not running for anything. But maybe this moment reminded people what dignity looks like. Michelle finally spoke and said it mattered. Because children are watching, families are watching, they need to see that composure still matters across America. The ripple spread into classrooms where teachers paused lessons to play the clip. One student asked, "Why did he call him boy?" And the teacher took a deep breath, replying, "That is why we are watching this." In churches, preachers quoted Obama's words, declaring respect is not optional. It is earned on construction sites, factory floors, and barbershops. Debates echoed. One man said, "I do not care if you vote for that was disrespectful," another replied, "but Trump fights. That is why we elected him." In small towns, rural diners, and urban youth centers, conversations shifted away from tax policy or foreign affairs toward tone, dignity, and leadership. A mother in Milwaukee told her daughter, "That is what strength looks like, calm." Firm without yelling, a student in Sacramento hung a banner across the school cafeteria reading "Stand Up With Me," and a pastor in Alabama thundered, "Dignity is not granted by office. It is shown by character." Late-night hosts, joke news anchors, dissected historians reflected. But the people listened because Obama did not tweet, and he did not grandstand. He let the words and the silence speak louder than anything else could have. And while the crowd absorbed the weight of what had just happened, Trump doubled down, trying to regain control. He stormed online declaring fake news and accusing the media of twisting his words. But the numbers that rolled and told a different story. Polls showed that a clear majority of Americans, and even nearly a third of Republicans, believed Obama had shown more dignity in that moment than Trump ever did. The tremor was felt across Capitol Hill, where lawmakers whispered in hallways and strategists scrambled. Some Republicans tried to balance on a tightrope, refusing to condemn Trump outright, but careful not to defend the sting of his remark. Others chose silence, knowing the risk of taking a side. But regardless of their words, everyone in Washington knew that the moment had landed and that it would linger, because this was never just about two men standing on a stage. It was about us as a nation. It was about how we lead, how we disagree, and how we carry ourselves when the spotlight is brightest. It was about what kind of example we set for children who are told to respect leaders, and then watch leaders refuse to show respect themselves. And in that single moment, with the cameras rolling, with millions watching live, Obama reminded the country of something timeless. Leadership is not about shouting. It is not about hurling insults. It is not about forcing people into obedience. True leadership does not command respect. It earns it with patience, with dignity, with character. So when the world tells you to sit down, when power tries to shrink you with a word, the most powerful thing you can say is "stand up with me," and that phrase echoed across living rooms, classrooms, workplaces, and places of worship until it became more than a response. It became a call, a reminder that the strength of a nation does not rest in titles or in volume, but in the quiet resolve to stand together.